Before I departed from the capital city of Aethelgard, I finalized two matters of great personal importance. First, I formally dissolved my engagement to Julian Ashton, thereby freeing him to pursue a marriage with my father's adopted daughter, Kora. Second, I had my name officially struck from the Valerius family registry. To make the separation absolute, I gathered every birthday gift my brother had ever given me over the years and returned them to him. Then, with the strike of a single match, I set fire to the small cottage on the family estate where I had been sent, erasing every last physical trace of my former existence. I have never, not for a single moment, regretted any of those decisions. My reasons were clear. To marry Kora, Julian had gone to the extreme of threatening his own life. And to soothe Kora's subsequent anger and frustration, my own brother Marcus had inflicted a cruel punishment upon me, forcing me to kneel in the heavy snow outside our ancestral hall for 2 full days and nights. That ordeal left me with a permanent injury, a limp that serves as a constant reminder of that time. 8 years later, however, I returned to Ethelgard. A completely chance encounter in a high-end jewelry shop brought us together again. Kora, the very same girl who had once been treasured by everyone like a rare and precious jewel, was now being harshly scolded by both Julian and Marcus. Her crime was simple. She had merely spoken my name. "She is your older sister," Julian had seethed. "How can you be so utterly disrespectful, so devoid of class? After all these years as a member of this family, have you still failed to learn even the most basic manners?" Ethelgard is a sprawling, immense city, and I had never imagined I would run into Kora just 5 days after my arrival. The meeting took place in a jewelry store located on the east side of the city. I had just finished inspecting a custom-made headpiece I had commissioned when I overheard a woman's voice nearby. "Ma'am, please look at that," she said to her companion. "That headpiece she is holding is absolutely gorgeous. It's so magnificent. I'm certain that Princess Saraphina will adore it." The piece was indeed beautiful. It was crafted from solid gold, intricately inlaid with deep red agate stones. I had personally sketched the designs for it months in advance and had sent them to the finest craftsmen in Ethelgard to have it custom made. The headpiece was undeniably extravagant, so it was only natural that it would draw comments from onlookers. I had no intention of paying them any mind or engaging in conversation. But just as I was carefully placing the piece back into its velvet-lined box, the person standing directly behind me stepped forward. "Excuse me, miss," she began. "I truly admire that headpiece. Would it be at all possible to—" The woman's voice abruptly caught in her throat, dying away into silence. The reason was simple. She had seen my face, and I, in turn, had seen hers. It was Kora. She looked markedly different from the vibrant, free-spirited girl I remembered, the one who had always been dressed in cheerful shades of pale yellow 8 years ago. Now, her hair was styled in the elaborate fashion of a married woman, and her clothes were lavish and ornate, clearly expensive. But some things, I noted, had not changed at all. Out of the sight of others, her eyes still held the same raw, undisguised loathing for me. "Alara," she breathed, her voice unconsciously loud with shock. Even though she quickly slapped a hand over her mouth, her exclamation had already alerted the occupants of the horse-drawn carriage, waiting just outside the shop. There was a muffled thud from outside. The carriage curtain was violently thrown open, followed by the sound of urgent, heavy footsteps on the cobblestones. The person inside rushed out of the carriage and into the store. The moment he saw me, his eyes turned a startling shade of red. "Alara, you're still alive." It was Julian, the son of the Minister of Ceremonies, the very same man I had been engaged to at the tender age of 14. Except 6 months before our scheduled wedding day, he had staged a dramatic hunger strike and threatened suicide, doing anything and everything in his power to break our engagement so that he could marry my father's adopted daughter instead. They referred to her as an adopted daughter, but in reality, she was my father's illegitimate child from an affair he'd had years ago. This wasn't a secret within our family. Unlike me, who was meticulously raised to manage the household and to be cautious and proper in every single word and action, Kora was lively and spontaneous. She was always calling out "brother" and "daddy" with a carefree affection. She possessed a unique charm. She could make you burst into laughter with a single clever sentence, and she could just as easily coax you out of any anger or frustration. Our family had few children, so when this pretty, sweet talking girl suddenly appeared in our lives, I was genuinely happy at first. But that happiness was shattered into a million pieces during the Lantern Festival that year, when I saw Julian trailing after her, trying desperately to soothe her after some minor disappointment. Come on, Kora, I promise I'll win that Lantern King prize for you next year, he pleaded. Don't be angry. Didn't you say you wanted to fly a kite? When spring comes, I'll make one for you myself, and we can take it out to the countryside, okay? Julian was going to make her a kite with his own hands. When had they become so close? Were all those delicate clay figures and expensive jade hairpins in Kora's room also gifts from him? I thought about it constantly during that time, unable to make sense of the sudden shift in our lives. So, at the Minister of Ceremonies' birthday banquet, I called him over to a secluded pavilion by the water's edge, intending to ask him about it indirectly. Julian, I began carefully, I've heard that you and Kora have been spending a lot of time together lately. Before I could even finish my sentence, he exploded with an astonishing rage. He accused me of being jealous and petty. He yelled at me for acting like his wife before we were even married. His shouts drew a crowd of curious guests, and the entire embarrassing affair ended up in front of his parents and my brother Marcus. That day, standing before his parents, he held a dagger to his own throat. The person I love is Kora, he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. I will only ever marry her and be with her and only her for the rest of my life. If you force me to marry Alara, I would rather die. Then his gaze fell on me, cold and accusatory. Alara, are you going to break off this engagement or not? Will you only be happy when you've driven both me and your sister to our deaths? Driving him to his death? I hadn't said a single confrontational word. How was I responsible for any of this? I never thought he would make things so public and ugly. I never imagined he would resort to a hunger strike just to end our engagement, making our family the subject of gossip all across Ethelgard. After days of weeping, I finally gave him what he wanted and sent over the official annulment papers. Things became very difficult for me after that. My brother Marcus banished me to our family's remote estate in the countryside. I almost didn't survive the harsh conditions there. My life only changed when I received a mysterious letter asking if I was willing to leave Ethelgard behind for good. That was 8 years ago. I haven't heard anyone call me Alara since. You have the wrong person, I said flatly, not wanting to get entangled with them again. I signaled for my maid, Rose, to take the box containing the headpiece, and I started to walk away. But I had barely taken 2 steps before a hand clamped down on my wrist. I frowned and turned back to face him. Julian's eyes were still red-rimmed, and he was staring at me with an intense, almost obsessive focus. I don't believe you. I would never mistake you for someone else. You are Ilara. Ilara. Come to think of it, this was the first time I had ever heard him call me by my first name with such familiarity. Before, it was always the formal Miss Valerius, or my full name, Ilara Valerius. Although my brother had arranged our engagement, there was a time when I had genuinely harbored feelings for him. After all, he would send exquisite gifts for my birthday each year. He would even defend me when Marcus lectured me for some minor infraction. Marcus, Alara is already so well-mannered and cultured, he would say. Don't you think you're being a little too strict, demanding she be so proper all the time? Don't listen to your brother. You're going to marry me anyway, and my family doesn't have all these suffocating rules. But I later discovered that those exquisite gifts were just items he'd casually told his butler to procure. Besides his Miss Valerius, there was also a Miss Wang and a Miss Lee receiving similar tokens. Only Kora was different. A kite made with his own hands, a small wooden rabbit he had carved himself, and the way he so intimately called her Kora. She was the special exception to every rule. Everything he did for her was filled with personal care and affection. But today he was calling me Alara. The familiar name, spoken with such intensity, made me deeply uncomfortable. I instinctively stepped back, pulling my arm free from his grasp. My maid, Rose, though young, was fiercely protective of me. She immediately stood in front of me, shielding me like a mother hen protecting her chick as she guided me toward the exit. Jerk, she muttered under her breath. Miss, let's go quickly. Julian looked like he wanted to follow us, but Kora stopped him. Honey, my sister is dead, she said, her voice trembling with a hint of panic. This woman just looks like her. How could it possibly be her? Before she could finish her sentence, Julian cut her off coldly. Shut up. They never found a body in that fire. Kora, Ilara was your sister. Is this how much you wanted her dead? The sounds of their escalating argument faded behind me as we left the store. I didn't have the energy to care about their conflict. Only when our carriage was moving and their voices were completely gone did I finally let out a long, shuddering breath. Miss, are you okay? Rose leaned in, her brow furrowed with concern, and cupped my face in her small hands. She was only 11 years old, but she possessed a wisdom far beyond her years. From the looks of it, they're going to come looking for you. Don't worry, I'll protect you. If we see them again, I'll curse them out. Her small features scrunched together in a display of seriousness that was almost adorable. Her fierce loyalty helped my tense nerves, which had been frayed by the sudden and unwelcome encounter, begin to relax. It's not your job to do that, I said, patting her head and sighing softly. It was just so sudden. I wasn't prepared. I've always been introverted and not very skilled with words. My father always said my brother was destined for great things, so he constantly admonished me to be careful with everything I said and did. Consequently, every time I spoke, I would think and rethink my words, terrified of saying the wrong thing and causing trouble. I knew before I returned to Ethelgard that I would inevitably see them again. I had even rehearsed in my mind what I would say, how I would act. But the encounter was so abrupt that all my preparations flew out of my mind. How could I let a child like Rose protect me every time something like this happened? But she was right about one thing. They would definitely come looking for me. Sure enough, not even an hour after I'd returned to my new residence, someone was knocking at the main gate. It wasn't Julian and Kora, however. It was Marcus. The butler was in the middle of reporting his arrival while I was in the study, inventorying the various gifts intended for Princess Saraphina's party in a few days. Before I could even decide whether or not to see him, he had already stormed into the room. When he saw my face, he froze, his hands clenching into tight fists at his sides. After a long, silent moment, his stern expression softened with a wave of emotion. As long as you're alive. As long as you're alive, he murmured. Ilara, how have you been all these years? Where did you go? Why was there no word from you? Marcus was once my brother. My mother's surname was Soren. She was my father's second wife. Though we didn't share the same mother, we were close when we were young. I used to affectionately call him brother. In those years when he was punished by our father, I would stay by his side and plead on his behalf. When he was studying for his civil service exams, I would sew knee pads and warm socks for him to ward off the cold. In return, he would help me with my studies and find tutors to teach me etiquette. Every year on my birthday, he would give me little trinkets. They weren't valuable, but they were thoughtful gestures. I always believed we were no different from any other siblings born to the same mother. That was until my father fell gravely ill and brought Kora home. He let Kora dotingly hang on his arm, calling him brother with ease. He let her run wild through the house, buying her the latest dresses from the city's finest seamstresses and the most exquisite hairpins from the jewelers. But to me, he would repeatedly say, Ilara, you are the legitimate daughter. You must be composed. You're the older sister. You should give in to Kora. He even forbade me from calling Marcus brother in a familiar way and would scold me if I laughed or spoke too loudly. It was then that I finally understood that we were never like other siblings. Later, my father passed away. According to tradition, I had to mourn for 3 years before I could marry. I finally made it to my wedding date, only to be faced with Julian's shocking change of heart. The day I came back from my humiliating visit to the Ashton family home, Kora cried to Marcus, Brother, Julian and I are in love. We're both daughters of this family. Why can't I be the one to marry him? Without a moment of hesitation, he ordered me. Ilara, write a letter breaking off the engagement. We'll tell everyone that you were unworthy of him and willingly withdrew. Kora has suffered a lot over the years. We already owe her so much. It's only right that we give in to her. Owe her? What did I ever owe her? I didn't understand. Even though I had been obedient my whole life and had never once defied him, that one time I couldn't help but ask, but I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I be the one to give in? He didn't answer me that day. Amidst Kora's tearful cries of, "Sister, have you never thought of me as family?" He flew into a rage. Alara, Kora is your sister. How can you be so aggressive over a mere engagement? He punished me by making me kneel outside the ancestral hall on the cold stone ground. He told me I could get up when I'd figured things out and was willing to write the letter. There wasn't even a cushion provided. For 2 full days of heavy snow, other than the servants assigned to guard me, no one remembered I was there. No one brought me any food or water. I finally couldn't take the cold and hunger anymore. And in that frozen misery, I finally understood. I did as he wished and wrote the letter they wanted, but on one condition, that my name be removed from the family registry. From that day on, I would no longer be a part of the Valerius family. Though he was furious at the time, he granted my wish. He struck my name from the registry right in front of me and then sent me away to the family estate in the countryside. The day I left Ethelgard, I sent back all the birthday gifts he had ever given me. I took nothing but 2 changes of clothes. Before disappearing from the estate entirely, I set fire to all traces of my life there and never returned to the capital. Compared to 8 years ago, Marcus looked much more haggard now. But 8 years ago, when he kicked me out of the family home, his tone was harsh and unforgiving. "Think carefully," he had warned. "The moment you step out of this house today, you are no longer one of us." Now, as he looked at me, his eyes were filled with a strange sort of regret. I didn't understand it, and I didn't want to answer his questions. I thought for a moment, choosing my words carefully. "Mr. Valerius, you are mistaken. My name was removed from the family registry 8 years ago. I am no longer a member of the Valerius family. My name is Alara Soren now." My tone was very calm, but my serious expression made Marcus's brow furrow, his face instantly clouding over. He gritted his teeth as if in disbelief. The removal from the registry was never witnessed by the family elders, nor was it officially recorded. It doesn't count. I never took it seriously. It's been 8 years. Are you still sulking? He paused. Before I could speak, he continued in a commanding tone. Since you're back, living outside the family home will only cause gossip. Pack your things and come home with me. His tone was just as entitled and condescending as it was when he told me to write the annulment letter all those years ago. But the me of today was not the same person I was back then. It only matters that it was real to me, I stated clearly. Mr. Valerius, just consider Alara Valerius to be dead. Please don't come here again. Now that I had made myself perfectly clear, I didn't want to drag out the unpleasant conversation. I called for a servant to show him out, but this action seemed to infuriate him. Alara, there's a limit to your games. 8 years ago, you set fire to the estate and vanished without a trace. Do you have any idea what people have been saying about our family all these years? Stop this nonsense and come home with me. His impatient voice was cut off by the cold steel of a longsword being pressed against his neck. The next second, a sharp male voice rang out. Well, look what we have here. A shameless baboon daring to cause a scene in someone else's house. It was my cousin, Kale. Behind him, 2 of his familiar guards were holding a struggling Julian, whom I had seen just an hour before. Julian must have heard what was said inside because he was struggling violently, his expression agitated. Alara, I knew I wasn't mistaken. You're alive, you're not dead. My cousin kicked him squarely in the leg, cutting him off with a sharp command. The esteemed Deputy Minister of Works and a director in the Treasury Department, barging into a private residence uninvited. What, you thought my cousin had no one to back her up so you could just bully your way in? Kale had seen portraits of them before arriving in Ethelgard, so of course he recognized them. But they didn't know him. My mother came from a humble background. When she married my father as his second wife, she was merely the second daughter of a minor local official. After the wedding, at my father's insistence, my mother had little contact with her family. My aunt had married young and moved far away. After a few years of exchanging letters, they lost touch completely. If I hadn't happened to see the unique embroidery on Kale's protective talisman in the army camp, a style only my mother knew, I never would have known I had a cousin. Now Julian and Marcus wore very different expressions. One glared at my cousin, sizing him up with suspicion. The other looked down at the sword at his neck, his face pale. Their expressions shifted through several emotions before they both frowned in unison. "Alara, who is he?" Marcus demanded. "This is my family's business. What right do you, an outsider, have to interfere?" "Outsider? Family business?" my cousin sneered. "Alara is no longer part of the Valerius family. What kind of family business is this? And you, Julian Ashton, you broke off your engagement to Alara and married another woman 8 years ago. Forget this Valerius guy. What right do you, a complete stranger, have to ask Alara who I am?" My cousin was a military man. He was straightforward and blunt, and his words were even more so. Marcus and Julian had probably never been spoken to like that in their lives. Their faces darkened, turning an ugly shade of green. "Alara, what happened back then was my—" Julian's lips moved as if he had something important to say, but he was cut off again by my cousin's impatient voice. He called for Rose. "It's about to rain. Help Alara back to her room to rest." I wasn't good with words. No matter how many drafts of a conversation I prepared in my head, I could never match my cousin's commanding presence. I always felt safe when he was around. So, I murmured a soft, "Mm-hmm," and let Rose help me back to my room. But this simple gesture seemed to infuriate Marcus even more. He practically gritted his teeth. "Alara, stop right there. The Valerius family raised you for over a decade, and you hold such a grudge? You refuse to come home or acknowledge your family over such a trivial matter?" A trivial matter? Acknowledge my family? Did he really want to acknowledge me? No, I might not be brilliant, but I wasn't a fool. "Marcus, you're just worried I'll affect your career and the family's reputation now that you're up for a promotion. What's the point of putting on this show?" Without looking back to see their expressions, I let Rose guide me away. My cousin was right. The sky had looked clear just a short while ago, but in less than half an hour it had turned a threatening gray. By the time he finished dealing with them and came to my study, the rain had just started to fall. Rose had also just finished steaming a packet of mugwort herbs to soothe my aching knees. I was gently rubbing my calf when I looked up and saw my cousin walk in, frowning. "I heard you ran into Julian while picking up the headpiece. Your leg is bad, why did you have to go yourself?" He took the warm mugwort packet from Rose and expertly applied the heat to my knee. "Don't be afraid, I've sent those two away." With him here, I naturally wasn't afraid. A small smile touched my lips as I said slowly, "It's a gift for Princess Saraphina. I couldn't trust anyone else with it. What about you, cousin? Weren't you supposed to arrive in Aethelgard in a few days? How did you get back today?" He was returning to the capital on secret orders to receive a new title, and needed to organize his troops before traveling with the other soldiers. I had set out half a month earlier. By all accounts, he should have been another 7 or 8 days away. But he didn't explain, just pouted and grumbled, "Cousin, cousin." A few days later. A few days later, and my sweet, lovely little sister would be calling someone else brother. Some people may be scumbags, but they've probably heard brother enough to be sick of it. Poor me, I've never had a little sister. He let out a long, mournful sigh. He was always like this, seemingly clowning around, but actually worrying endlessly. He was always deliberately changing the subject to keep me from worrying. I knew he must have traveled for days without rest to have made it back today. A warmth spread through my chest, and I couldn't help but smile. "Thank you for everything, brother." "Hey!" His face finally broke into a wide grin. Halfway through his smile, he seemed to remember something, and his expression changed. "Alara, Marcus insists he never removed you from the family registry. That means on paper, you're still registered as a Valerius. What are your plans now?" My first order of business upon returning to Aethelgard was to confirm this very thing. I had anticipated this situation, so I wasn't too surprised. No rush, I said, lowering my gaze and pondering the issue. There will be a way to cut ties. The summer rain fell like a waterfall all through the night. Although my leg was acting up, the mugwort treatment helped me sleep soundly. But in the unseen Valerius mansion, Marcus was awake all night. In his study, the lamplight flickered like a bean. On his desk were the birthday gifts he had once given me each year, the ones I had returned, which he had dug out from a dusty corner of the storage room. He had originally planned to have them sent to me again, hoping to stir up memories of our past affection. But looking at the cheap trinkets, all carelessly bought from street vendors, and remembering the indifferent look in my eyes that day, and my accusation of him putting on a show, perhaps it was because I had hit a nerve. Marcus's eyes were dark, and he had even crushed a porcelain teacup in his hand without realizing it. Julian and Kora were also sleepless. In a side courtyard, Julian was downing cup after cup of strong liquor, clearly drunk. Kora didn't try to stop him. She just stood beside him, her face grim, listening to his low, drunken muttering. Alara, I'm sorry. I only wanted to break the engagement. I never wanted you to die. You refuse to admit who you were today because you still resent me, right? Because you still can't let me go. Right. Alara Valerius. Kora gritted her teeth, the hatred in her eyes finally breaking free like a storm. I had no idea how others spent that night. I slept well until the next day when rumors suddenly started spreading through the city. The butler brought the news back just as my cousin was helping me choose a dress for Princess Saraphina's banquet. He thought the green one was too plain, the pomegranate red one too garish. He picked through them, never satisfied. Finally, he frowned. Alara, you don't have to save my salary this much, you know. Your brother has plenty of money. Let's go. Let's go get you some new clothes. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't refuse his boisterous enthusiasm. Just then, the butler came in, saving me. Oh, miss, you have no idea how nasty the rumors are. They're saying you disappeared back then because you eloped with someone, that the fire was to destroy the evidence. And they're saying you and the young master were involved without a proper engagement. Before he could finish, my cousin's face had gone cold. Rose, who was shelling sunflower seeds nearby, slammed her hand on the table with a bang. Damn them! They deserve to die! The two of them, one big and one small, were in perfect sync, about to get up and leave. I quickly stopped them. Where are you going? My cousin gritted his teeth. Where else? To settle the score with those two. Rose nodded emphatically in agreement. Yeah. My head suddenly started to ache. Come back. It wasn't Julian or Marcus. Last month, the Minister of Public Works had died suddenly from an illness. As the deputy minister, Marcus was the top candidate to replace him. At a critical time like this, he would never gamble with his own reputation or the family's name. And Julian, though he only held a minor, unimportant post at the Treasury Department, the Ashton family was in decline. He wouldn't bring up the past and put himself and his family in the spotlight. I had a good idea who was behind the rumors, but I wasn't in a hurry. It's fine. We're not the ones who should be worried anyway. I was right. The rumors only lasted a day before they were squashed, but on the day of Princess Saraphina's welcome banquet in the countryside, as my cousin and I were passing through a small garden, we still heard people whispering. Hey, is that rumor true? Which one? The one about the Valerius family's eldest daughter disappearing in a fire 8 years ago and then suddenly returning to Aethelgard. Mrs. Ashton, aren't you the Valerius family's adopted daughter? Do you know what happened? The murmuring died down. Then came Kora's slightly hesitant voice. I'm not sure why my sister insisted on breaking the engagement back then. She faked her own death to leave Aethelgard. Now that she's back but won't return home, I suppose she must have her reasons. What a load of bull! My cousin's curse was cut short when I tugged on his sleeve. Today was Princess Saraphina's welcome banquet. This was her private villa. The party hadn't even started. It wasn't the time for a confrontation. Let's take our seats first. We can deal with this later. I tried to pull him away, but as I turned, I saw Julian standing at the end of the path, his face pale. Alara? He frowned, looking from me to my cousin as if he had something to say. But his lips had just parted when he was interrupted by Kora, who had heard the commotion and came out. Sister, what are you doing here? She quickly moved to his side, grabbing his sleeve as if to declare her ownership. Her eyes, when she looked at me, were guarded and uneasy. Honey, the banquet is about to start. Let's go. She tried to pull Julian away, but he remained motionless, his brow tightly furrowed as he stared at me, emotions churning in his eyes as if he had 1,000 things to say. Until Marcus's surprised voice suddenly cut in. Alara, why are you here? Perhaps he had spent too much energy suppressing the rumors because Marcus didn't look well today. His gaze swept over everyone. When it landed on Kora, it turned cold for a moment. Then he walked closer and lowered his voice. Ilara, this is not a place for you. Go home now. His voice wasn't loud, but the disturbance here had already drawn a crowd. Whenever it came to me, my cousin couldn't control his temper. What the hell does it have to do with you whether we're here or not? Having been publicly rebuked, Marcus's face grew even darker, but he still directed his anger at me. Do you know what this place is? How dare you bring someone here so brazenly? Aren't you embarrassed enough? Embarrassed? Why should I be embarrassed? My cousin and I have an invitation from Princess Saraphina. The moment I pulled the formal invitation from my sleeve, the crowd erupted in hushed whispers. Cousins, weren't the rumors that they eloped 8 years ago after an illicit affair and faked her death? Pfft, how can you believe rumors? Amidst the chatter, Julian's eyes suddenly lit up. Kora's fists clenched, a flash of resentful unwillingness in her eyes. Only Marcus looked utterly stunned. Cousin? Which cousin is he? Why didn't I know? That's hilarious, my cousin sneered. Forget cousin. Do you even know how many people are in the Sorin family? Back then, your father rushed to offer a betrothal to my aunt to be his second wife, promising to treat her like his first and never take another concubine. Ha! No concubines. But he had a child outside the marriage. For all those years, you forbade my aunt from coming home, cut off her letters to her family. Wasn't it just because you saw that my aunt was soft-hearted and easy to control? Someone who could manage your household and slave away for your family? What my cousin said was true. After giving birth to me, my mother's health was never good. Back then, my father was just a minor official. The Valerius family wasn't as wealthy as it is now, so there weren't many servants. She had to do many things herself. My father had instructed her, though my rank is low, Marcus is exceptionally talented and destined for greatness. Yan Yang, though he is not your biological son, since he calls you mother, you must put extra effort into his upbringing. So my mother treated Marcus as her own son. When it came to food and clothing in the family, Marcus always got the best. To hire a prestigious tutor for him, before she had even finished her postpartum confinement, my mother started embroidering a complex tapestry of guanyin on a lotus for the tutor's wife, ruining her eyesight in the process. Even in her final moments, she was still teaching me, it's not easy for your brother to enter officialdom. You must listen to your father and brother and don't make them angry. But just a year after she died, my father brought Kora home. Having grown up together, I never doubted my closest relatives. It wasn't until I was forced to write the annulment letter that I had a startling realization. My mother and I were just options for my father and Marcus to weigh in their cost-benefit analysis. Clearly, Marcus couldn't accept being publicly accused like this. But Kora was even less composed than he was. Ilara, you're lying. I'm just the Valerius family's adopted daughter. What is all this commotion? The sharp voice was cut off by a bright female one. Following the sound, I saw the gorgeously dressed Princess Saraphina approaching, surrounded by her maids. She wasn't alone. Behind her was her full-blooded brother, the sixth prince, Alistair. Everyone bowed, but Princess Saraphina didn't tell them to rise. Her gaze swept lazily over the crowd, lingering on Kora for a moment. Then she raised an eyebrow slightly. Tell me, what happened? Princess Seraphina's tone was light, not particularly serious. but anyone who knew her knew that she was already displeased. Unfortunately, Kora had never met her and didn't know her temperament. She thought that by explaining first, she could seize the upper hand. Your Highness, it's Alara. She's spreading baseless rumors about my birth. I am, after all, the wife of a director in the Treasury Department. How can I let her? Kora, shut up! After all these years in the family, how have you still not learned any manners? It was Julian who cut her off. Although he was just a director, his father was the Minister of Ceremonies, and his uncle, the head of the Ashton family, the Marquis of Anyang, who had married the eldest princess, was in a roundabout way related to Princess Saraphina. Therefore, he knew Princess Seraphina's temper very well, especially since 8 years ago, when the Marquis had been stripped of his military power for his son's defiance of an imperial edict, and that power was handed to Princess Seraphina. The entire Ashton family had been wary of her ever since. Your Highness, my wife is reckless and meant no offense. He pulled Kora down to kneel with a thud. Even Marcus admonished her. Kora, Alara is your sister. How could you be so disrespectful? Then he bowed again. My 2 sisters are ill-mannered. I beg your Highness's forgiveness. They thought that by saying this, they would at most get a scolding, but Princess Seraphina just snorted. Sisters, did I ask you a question? Kale, you come here. She turned her head, beckoning to me, her brow relaxing. You tell me. Are they ganging up on you again because they think you're all alone? The name Kale sent a ripple of gasps through the crowd. In their shock, Julian and Marcus's eyes widened. Master Kale, the genius inventor. How is that possible? Kale. It was indeed the alias I had used in the military camp at the western border. The person who wrote to me 8 years ago and took me away from Ethelgard was none other than Princess Seraphina herself. That year, after angering Marcus, he sent me to the family estate. My leg, injured from kneeling for so long, went untreated. The estate matron withheld my charcoal and warm clothes, and I almost didn't survive that winter. Thankfully, just as I was on the brink of death, Princess Seraphina arrived with her people. At the time, Marcus's rank wasn't very high. Although I was engaged to Julian, I rarely attended the banquets held by the ladies of Ethelgard, let alone knew a figure as prominent as Princess Seraphina. I didn't understand why she had sought me out, but she had my leg treated and nursed me back to health. She told me, 6 months ago, you drew a design for a lightweight bow for Zhaoying Ashton. I saw it. It's very interesting. Alara, you have a real talent for mechanics. Are you willing to come with me to the western border, perfect the design, and help me? I had indeed drawn the design she mentioned. That year, Julian's sister had injured her hand and wanted a lighter bow for hunting that could still shoot far, but I couldn't find a suitable one. So I drew up a design and had it sent to the Ashton residence. I was introverted, not good with words, and had no particular talents. The only thing I was remotely good at were these little contraptions I tinkered with in my spare time. But Julian not only didn't use it, he scoffed. If you have time for this, you'd be better off learning embroidery. Marcus also said, playing with wood all day, that's not what a woman should be doing. Only Princess Seraphina praised me. You have a real talent. For years in the military camp at the western border, I worked with the craftsmen, endlessly refining and improving military equipment. I watched as Princess Seraphina led my cousin and the soldiers to reclaim city after city. Day after day, she would tell me, Kale, in my presence, you can speak your mind freely. You don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing. That's right. She preferred to call me Kailis over Alara. She was almost unconditionally biased in my favor, just like now. Master Kalis? It's Miss Kalis, actually. Kalis, don't be afraid. With me here, no one can bully you. Today, some of what was said was planned between us. I looked at the still shocked Julian and the others, and after a moment of consideration, I spoke. Your Highness, 8 years ago, I was engaged to Director Ashton, but he had a change of heart. He threatened to kill himself to break the engagement. To save face for both families, Mr. Valerius also forced me to initiate the annulment, claiming I was unworthy. Back then, I agreed to write the annulment letter on the condition that I cut all ties with the Valerius family, and Mr. Valerius struck my name from the family registry. But now that I've returned to Aethelgard, he has sought me out again, claiming the disownment was never official. I was actually hoping to ask you to inquire with the Bureau of Records about how I can officially sever all ties with them. As my words fell, the crowd erupted in an uproar. Although the matter of Julian threatening suicide had been covered up back then, the fact that he married Kora shortly after I disappeared made the reason for it all crystal clear now. Amidst the discussion, the color drained from Julian's face, turning a pasty gray. Marcus gritted his teeth, his face dark. Only Princess Saraphina was smiling. But she didn't speak. It was the sixth prince beside her who did. Of course it counts. Everyone here today is a witness, and Miss Kalis need not worry about the Bureau of Records. With one sentence, the matter was settled. Marcus and the others dared not say another word. The farce ended and the banquet began. But during the meal, everyone had different expressions. I sat beside Princess Seraphina. Throughout, I could feel several pairs of eyes vaguely fixed on me. Sure enough, after the guests had dispersed and I had finished speaking with Princess Seraphina, just as I was about to get into my carriage to leave, someone stopped me. It was Julian. In the flickering candlelight, his brow was furrowed, his eyes complex as he looked at me. I don't know if it was my imagination, but when he spoke, his tone was almost cautious. Alara, I never knew you were so skilled in mechanics. Of course, he didn't know. In the past, he seemed to find me boring. Even when he was drunk and complaining to others, he'd say, Ilara, she has no other strengths except for a gentle personality. But there are countless gentle women in Aethelgard. Nothing special. Her adopted sister, on the other hand, is so bright and lively. He clearly thought I was nothing special. So why was he seeking me out again and again, with such an expression on his face? I didn't understand, and I had no intention of understanding. I tried to walk around him to get into the carriage, but he blocked me again, his voice trembling. Alara, you still resent me, don't you? You didn't admit who you were the other day because you're still angry about me breaking the engagement, aren't you? It was a tricky question. If I said I resented him, it would mean I was still hung up on the past, that I couldn't let him go. But if I said I didn't, that would be a lie. So I thought for a moment and chose my words carefully. What if I blame you for what happened back then? What if I don't? What's the point of you asking me this question 8 years later? Tonight, my cousin had to leave early for business. Before he left, he told me to be careful and not get entangled with Julian and Marcus. That was my plan as well. Julian, I think you should understand that the moment you decided to break our engagement, we were done. If you have any self-awareness, you shouldn't be stopping me here today. I watched the color drain from Julian's face. I thought he understood. Just as I was about to move past him, his expression suddenly became agitated. I looked for you, Alara. I looked for you. He took a step forward. His gaze on me was complex, his eyes as dark as ink. I only wanted to break the engagement. I never meant to hurt you. When I heard about the fire at the Valerius estate, I rushed there immediately, but I couldn't find anything. Alara, I regret it. I've regretted it for a long time. Can you forgive me? As long as you forgive me, I'll do anything. Even divorce Kora. I felt sick, although his repeated attempts to stop me gave me a vague idea of his motives. Hearing him say it out loud still filled my chest with a wave of disgust. I was starting to regret it. I shouldn't have politely declined Princess Seraphina's offer to have someone escort me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here now, too stunned to even think of a single sharp retort. All I could manage to mutter was, "You're sick. You're insane." Ilara, Miss Soren? A gentle male voice interrupted Julian. I looked toward the sound. The sixth prince, Alistair, was coming out of the gate, acting as if we were old friends. Perfect timing. My carriage was fine when I arrived, but just now, when I was about to leave, it broke down for some reason. Would you mind giving me a ride? With the sixth prince making a request, Julian certainly wouldn't dare to object. He could only watch as the prince got into my carriage. It wasn't until Julian's figure was completely out of sight that I finally let out a breath of relief. I whispered, Thank you, Your Highness, for helping me out today. Hearing this, the sixth prince sat up straight, the tips of his ears gradually turning red. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Please forgive me, miss. So he had been standing at the door for a while and had heard everything. It's all right. I shook my head. The carriage was spacious enough, but it was still an enclosed space. Suddenly sharing it with someone, being as bad with words as I am, I felt a little awkward. After saying that, I lowered my eyes. The sixth prince didn't seem to be a smooth talker either. I was silent, and he was silent. The atmosphere remained quiet. It wasn't until the wheels had been rumbling for about 10 minutes that I heard him clear his throat softly. When Julian said he regretted it, will you forgive him, miss? The question was so sudden, I was surprised and couldn't help but look up at him. The red on his ear tips had deepened, but his brow was slightly furrowed, and he looked at me with such seriousness that it didn't seem like a casual question. Forgive him? Princess Saraphina had asked me the same question before I returned to Ethelgard. She had said, Ilara, to men, what they can't have is always the best. Once they have it, the clouds in the sky instantly become mud on the ground. When you return to Ethelgard, your status will be completely different. For whatever reason, Julian will definitely come pestering you. When that time comes, will your heart soften? Will you go back to him? Have you thought about what you will do? At first, I thought her words were absurd. After all, Julian was the one who threatened to kill himself to break the engagement. He was the one who found me utterly lacking in merit. I had seen how much he loved Kora. How could he possibly regret it? But her words had come true. Go back to him? Absolutely not. After all, why would I go back and pick up something that's already been thrown in a swamp? As I spoke, the carriage came to a stop. Without realizing it, we had arrived at my front door. I told the driver to take the sixth prince back to the palace, thanked him again, and got out of the carriage. But just as I was about to enter the residence, I heard him call out softly, Miss Soren. I turned back at the sound. The carriage curtain was lifted from the inside, revealing the sixth prince's face, as gentle and clear as the moon in the water. The frown on his face had smoothed out. His lips were curved in a slight smile. The winds are changing in Ethelgard. Please take care of yourself. The winds in Ethelgard were indeed changing. For his distinguished military service, my cousin Kale was ennobled by the emperor as the general of the Far Conquest. The military authority that Princess Saraphina had taken from the Marquis of Anyang 8 years ago was now in my cousin's hands. And for my work in modifying military equipment, which helped Princess Saraphina reclaim lost cities, I was also rewarded by the emperor with a special favor. I traded that favor for an official decree of severance, completely cutting my ties with the Valerius family and establishing my own household. With these two events, visitors and well-wishers came in a constant stream. Julian and Marcus also came a few times, but they were always turned away by my cousin, and I never saw them once. But soon, they stopped coming, because several major events had shaken the imperial court. A woman beat the drum of grievance, accusing the Salt Commissioner of embezzlement and murder. The case shocked the emperor. He ordered a thorough investigation, which shockingly revealed the mastermind to be the third prince. In addition, it led to the unraveling of several other cases, including the corruption case of the prefect involved in the Suzhou riverbank collapse 5 years ago, and last year's cheating scandal in the imperial examinations. The number of implicated officials was over a dozen. Among them were Marcus, the deputy minister of works, and Julian, a director in the treasury department. Due to the gravity of the cases, the emperor fell seriously ill from rage and anxiety. On his sickbed, amidst the council of his officials, he finally named a crown prince and handed over the entire investigation of the third prince's case to them. But to everyone's surprise, the chosen heir was not the sixth prince, whose reputation had been growing due to his sister's successful campaigns. It was Princess Saraphina herself. Appointing a princess as the heir apparent was unprecedented. The imperial decree sent shockwaves through the court, but Princess Saraphina acted with lightning speed, clarifying the details of the third prince's case and suppressing all opposition within half a month. Court politics had little to do with me, but my cousin was very busy, working from dawn till dusk assisting Princess Saraphina with the investigation. The day the third prince was demoted to a commoner and placed under house arrest for life, and all the implicated officials were imprisoned, my cousin warned me with a grave expression. Alara, Ethelgard is not safe right now. You be good and don't go anywhere, you hear me? Okay. Of course, I knew. But even if I didn't go out, trouble could still find me. Because that very night, the third prince colluded with the Imperial Guard and started a rebellion, and the first thing the rebel army did upon entering the city was to send a small squad led by Kora to storm my residence. The third prince's rebellion was sudden and unexpected. No one anticipated that Kora would be so brazen as to lead men to storm my house directly. The men she brought with her didn't look like well-trained Imperial guards. They were more like ruthless bandits. They rushed into the residence and started killing indiscriminately. The servants were either dead or injured. It wasn't until they had captured me that she ordered, "Stop!" She had come for me. After having me tied up, she didn't rush to kill me. She just pushed me to the ground, looking down at me with a fierce glare. "Elara, since you left, why did you come back? Why did you have to come back and fight me?" Hearing Julian say he regretted it, that he was looking for you. You were happy, weren't you? Seeing him neglect me, wanting to divorce me to get back with you, you were very pleased with yourself, weren't you? She squeezed my chin hard, her painted nails digging into my flesh. The pain made me wince, so she was there that day. She heard what Julian said. But what does Julian's regret have to do with me? Why would I be happy or pleased? He's the one who is unfaithful. Why are you questioning me instead of confronting him? I looked straight into her eyes, my tone calm. Perhaps not seeing the fear she wanted on my face, Kora's expression went blank for a moment. Then she sneered. "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. You just hate me for taking Julian and taking our brother from you, so you teamed up with that bitch Saraphina to steal the show at the banquet, to let them see your transformation, your uniqueness, so you could win back their hearts and affection, right? Ha! Elara, you're a real actress. You fooled everyone." She acted as if she knew me completely, her tone growing more and more vicious. After a moment, as if struck by a thought, she sneered again, let go of me, and stood up straight. As if she had touched something filthy, she wiped her hands with a handkerchief while signaling to the fierce, blade-wielding men. "Don't worry, I won't kill you. For the sake of our sisterhood, I'm even going to find you some good husbands. I imagine once you're married, Julian won't be thinking about you anymore." She paused, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. "Brothers, this is the beloved sister of the general of the far conquest. You must take good care of her tonight. Once you're the general's esteemed brothers-in-law, whether the third prince succeeds or not, you'll be set for life." As she spoke, several large men had already surrounded me, their smiles ferocious. "Don't you worry, ma'am, and thank you for this generous gift." Watching the hulking men close in on me, even as naive as I was about certain matters, I understood what Kora was planning. Over the years, though I was far away at the western border, I had heard rumors about the Ashton family. They said that 3 months after I disappeared, Julian had married Kora as he wished. But after years of marriage, because Kora had never borne a child, the Ashton family had arranged for Julian to take concubines. But without exception, those women either disappeared before entering the household, their whereabouts unknown, or they were caught with another man after a night with Julian, and Kora would get rid of them on the grounds of uncertain paternity. Seeing how familiar she was with these men now, it seemed this wasn't their first time working together. Yes, I was afraid. But I was still relatively calm. In the army for many years, I faced open and hidden threats. Though I never went to the front lines, I had learned a few tricks for self-defense. For example, the wooden bracelet I wore on my wrist, which I never took off, concealed a short blade. While Kora was talking, I hadn't been idle. I had already quietly cut the ropes binding me. As one of the men reached for me and the others let down their guard, I leapt up from the ground, slashed the man's hand, and bolted. They hadn't expected me to break free and were caught completely off guard. It took Kora's furious shout, "What are you standing there for? Go after her!" for them to snap out of it. Cursing, they gave chase. Using my familiarity with the house, I darted around, but my knee was injured, my leg was bad, and I couldn't run far. Just as they were about to catch me, my mind raced, my heart in my throat. Just as I was debating whether to surrender or fight to the death if caught, I ran into someone's chest at a corner. Elara! The man's voice was a mixture of worry and surprise. It was Julian. Behind him stood Marcus, dressed in simple clothes and holding a long sword. Seeing Kora and her men chasing out from the courtyard, it took them only a glance to understand what was happening. Kora! Julian gritted out her name, word by word. Marcus's face instantly darkened. Kora, no matter what, Elara is still your sister. Their words made Kora freeze. Her eyes widened as she looked at me, then at the two men standing in front of me. Sister? When has she ever treated me like a sister? And when have you ever treated me like one? Marcus, don't think I don't know you only helped me back then because Julian liked me, because you wanted to use me to get close to his family and the third prince. Just like you're protecting her now because she's close to Princess Saraphina, you want to keep her alive as your ace in the hole, a turncoat ready to switch sides at any moment. As if his thoughts had been exposed, Marcus's expression stiffened. Shut up! But Kora didn't shut up. She shrieked, her face contorted in a mask of laughter and tears. Marcus, the ship is sinking and you want to jump off? Not so fast. And you, Julian. Before we were married, you swore you'd be with me and only me for life. But just 1 year into our marriage, you wanted to take a concubine. You said it's because I couldn't have children, that you had no choice. But search your heart. Which one of those women you wanted to take wasn't a spitting image of Elara? In all our years of marriage, how many times have you even touched me? Her accusations came to an abrupt halt. Time seemed to freeze. Kora's eyes widened in disbelief as she slowly looked down at the arrow sticking out of her chest. After a long moment, she finally looked up. My husband. She couldn't finish because another arrow struck her. Before she collapsed, Kora stared intently at Julian, her gaze a mixture of love and hate, until her last breath. Everything fell silent. The air itself seemed to freeze. After a long while, Marcus finally found his voice. Julian, you killed Kora. But Julian didn't even look at the furious Marcus. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Elara, don't be afraid. Kora is dead. No one will dare. His voice also cut off abruptly, his words left unfinished, because the short blade in my hand was already plunged into his chest. Afraid of her? Why? Amidst the shocked cries of his followers, I looked straight into his eyes. The one who deserves to die the most. Isn't it you? I spent years on the border. When our camp was in chaos from a spy attack I had killed before. But a dagger is short, unable to inflict a fatal wound. In just a moment, Julian reacted. He pushed me away in disbelief, clutching the bleeding wound as he staggered back, supported by his men. Elara, why? Do you hate me that much? Hate? Of course. Don't you know that all of this started because of you? Back then, if you didn't want to marry me, you could have just told me beforehand. It's not like I had to marry you, but you chose such an extreme method, leaving me with no dignity at all. I held the short blade in front of me for protection, my voice perfectly calm. When you broke our engagement for Kora, I did feel resentment, but mostly I just lamented how love is beyond one's control, and that I just happened to not be the one in your heart. But now, I'm only glad. Glad that you broke the engagement, because I later discovered that the core under your skin has long been rotten. Was it the pain? In my vision, Julian's face grew paler and paler, his expression uglier. He gritted his teeth as if wanting to argue, but his lips moved, and he ultimately looked at Marcus. Brother Marcus, didn't you swear absolute loyalty to the third prince? Take her down, and I won't tell His Highness about what happened today. I had known for a long time that Marcus was part of the third prince's faction. He had used the marriage to get close to the Ashton family, all to climb up to the third prince. Without the third prince's patronage, he never would have reached the position of Deputy Minister of Works in such a short time. For years, the Ashton and Valerius families had been allies. But now, with the Third Prince's rebellion, he must have known the consequences of failure and, as Kora had said, was beginning to waver. But Julian was different. Success or failure, the Ashton family was completely in the same boat as the Third Prince. He might have had an ounce of sincerity when he saved me just now, but his order for Marcus to capture me now to ensure he couldn't jump ship was also real. But they had miscalculated one person. Rose was small. The moment the chaos started in the front yard, she had slipped out through the doggy door in the back to get help. By my calculations, enough time had passed. Sure enough, just as Marcus hesitated, a commotion erupted from the front yard. In the blink of an eye, well-trained soldiers rushed in, surrounding them. But unexpectedly, it wasn't Princess Saraphina, nor was it my cousin and his men. It was the sixth prince, whom I had met once at Princess Seraphina's welcome banquet. He was dressed in armor, his movements clean and decisive as he fought his way in. Marcus was a scholar, unskilled in combat. Julian was decent, but he was injured. In just a few moves, both were captured and restrained. Knowing my leg was bad, Rose rushed to support me. The sixth prince also strode over, frowning as he looked me over. "Miss Soren, are you hurt?" His brow finally relaxed when I shook my head. With the sixth prince here, the situation was settled. However, just as his men were about to drag Julian and Marcus away, Julian struggled and asked, "Elara, you won't forgive me. Is it because of him?" He glared at the sixth prince with venomous eyes. Already pale from blood loss, his struggles made the bloodstain on his chest spread, and his face turned even whiter. I didn't understand what he was talking about, and I had no intention of answering. But as I managed to sit down on a stool a guard brought for me, wincing from the pain in my leg, I heard another voice. "Elara, your leg." This time it was Marcus. He seemed to have finally noticed my limp, his tone surprised. But I don't know if it was just a tactic to try and appeal to me. There was little sincerity in his eyes. But this time, I looked up at him. "Have you forgotten? The time you made me kneel in the snow for 2 days so I would willingly write the annulment letter. For the past 8 years, whenever it's rainy or windy, my knees ache so much I can't walk. And after standing for too long or running, I'm left like this, practically a cripple." I couldn't quite decipher the expression on Marcus's face. There was shock, astonishment. It was too complicated. I didn't want to analyze it. But Kora was right about one thing. I did come back to fight. My gaze swept over both of them and I paused. Only I wasn't fighting her for a man. I came back to fight for a position. The position of Deputy Minister of Works. I've had my eye on it for a long time. During my time in the army, Princess Saraphina once told me, "Kale, I want to be the crown princess. There is no precedent for this in history. I want to be that precedent. And if you want, you can be another precedent. Become a court official." I had never considered it before, but watching Princess Saraphina fight alongside my cousin, reclaiming city after city, I thought, why can't I be an official? I knew that for Princess Saraphina to ascend the throne, she would have to purge the third prince's faction. And for me to enter the court in the future and establish myself in Ethelgard without being vulnerable, I first had to completely sever ties with the Valerius family. Putting other things aside, Marcus had to be removed from his position as Deputy Minister of Works. Clearly, Marcus had not expected my words. His eyes widened in shock, his face flashing between red and purple. He probably had something to say, but he couldn't, because a guard stuffed a rag in his mouth and dragged him away with Julian. "Miss, my tutor just taught me a phrase the other day. Killing with words. You were just like that. So amazing." The two men hadn't been dragged far when Rose said excitedly. In the distance, both of them faltered in their steps, let out a few muffled groans, and were dragged away again. "My dear Rose, I think your words are the ones that truly kill." Rose, oblivious, didn't respond. But in my peripheral vision, the sixth prince took a few steps closer. Though I didn't know why Rose had found him when she went for help, he had ultimately saved me, and for that, he deserved my thanks. After a moment's thought, I looked up at the sixth prince, whose brow was once again slightly furrowed, and rose to bow. But before I could speak, he interrupted me. Julian was right. I do have feelings for you, miss. Miss Soren, you may have forgotten, but I saw you 8 years ago at the Lantern Festival at the Moon Gazing Tower. You solved all the riddles and won the Lantern King. I asked you for it, and I never expected you to actually give it to me. I didn't quite catch the rest of his words. Looking at the sixth prince before me, his expression so earnest, his fists clenched at his sides as if he had rehearsed this 1,000 times, a sudden clap of thunder seemed to boom in my ears. The Lantern King, I vaguely remembered. That year at the Lantern Festival, I had heard that Julian wanted the Lantern King from the Moon Gazing Tower, so I had gone alone in disguise. I sat in a private room, solved all the riddles, and won the Lantern King. I had originally planned to send it to the Ashton residence as a surprise for Julian, but then I saw him on the street, chasing after Kora, coaxing her gently. I've forgotten how I felt then. I vaguely recall the biting cold wind and someone coming up to speak to me. Miss, I heard this year's Lantern King was made by the great Master Jin of Runan. I have admired him for a long time and am willing to buy it for 1,000 gold pieces. Would you be willing to part with it? What did I say? Oh, I think I said, no need, you can have it. Then I walked back to the Valerius mansion in a daze. In those days, I was so mentally and physically exhausted by everything happening, I never once thought about that lantern I had casually given away. So it was the sixth prince who had asked for it. A coincidence? It didn't seem like it. My mind was a mess, and before I could sort it out, the sixth prince's voice sounded again. You don't need to feel burdened, miss, nor do you need to give me an answer. I saw your designs back then, and I've watched how you've navigated these past 8 years. I believe that a good marriage can only ever be the icing on the cake. He seemed very nervous. He spoke in a single breath, and only then did he finally exhale, his brow relaxing as he slowed his voice. Miss, I know you are destined for great things. 8 years ago, I didn't interfere with your decision or clip your wings. I begged my sister to take you away. And I'm not asking for your answer now either. I just felt that you should know how I feel, that's all. What did he mean? Was he the one who wrote to me 8 years ago? I couldn't figure it out. Looking at the man before me, his eyes gentle and his expression sincere, I found myself murmuring, I wanted to ask if he was the one who wrote the letter. I wanted to ask why he had recognized my potential from a single glance. Suddenly, a clear voice interrupted my thoughts. Your Highness, the Emperor has issued the Edict of Abdication. Princess Saraphina wants you back at the palace immediately. It was my cousin, his eyes bright with joy. He then looked at me. Alara, Princess Seraphina has a message for you. She asked me to ask you, are you ready? Am I ready? That's what Princess Seraphina had asked me at the welcome banquet. She had said, Kale, everyone in Ethelgard laughs at me, calling me the mad dog of the court. Now this mad dog is about to sit on the dragon throne. Are you ready to start a new era with me? Remembering her words, watching the sixth princes retreating back as he hurried away, my heart began to race. Oh well, there's plenty of time. A new, vast world for my cousin, for the new empress, and for me was just beginning to unfold. There was no rush. Yes, I said, a smile finally reaching my lips. I'm ready.